Hi, I'm Bill Blazowski, one of the ABC or Alliance for Bayway community principals, and I'd like to welcome you to the third ABC seminar of the 2020-2021 season. Our first session was a virtual town hall on advocacy issues important to ABC associations as well as residents. You should have received the recording of that session in an email that included a YouTube link to the seminar. The second ABC session was a live discussion with the Florida office responsible for rules that condominium associations must follow. That is the DBPR, or the Department of Business and Professional Regulations. All of the remaining ABC seminars this year will be virtual. This February seminar consists of two insurance-related topics. The first is a conversation with an experienced insurance agent that covers many questions you may have about individual and association policies. The second discusses possible association use of independent adjusters who represent an insured party's interest in working with an insurance company after a loss occurs. There'll be six other ABC principals joining me in this discussion with the speakers. They are Richard Key, Jean and Nancy Labar, Harold Butler, Ken Wolf, and Del Ulrich. Organizing this year's seminar program has not been easy, but Del Ulrich has stepped up and done a great job doing just that. He will introduce our first speaker.
Thank you, Bill. Today we have Anthony Liciabo, President of the Great Florida Insurance of St. Pete. Specialized in association insurance, both for master associations and individual associations, and I believe individual unit owners. As the company is locally owned and operated, they can work closely with managers as well as condo associations to recommend appropriate coverage for the associations. Without further ado, we welcome Anthony.
All right, Del, thank you very much. A special thank you to Del, because I've been working with Del since October or November of last year and putting this together. So Del, thank you very much. I know that I had a lot of appreciated. So thank you for having me, and Ken and Richard, Nancy, Harold, Bill, on behalf of our agency here at Great Florida Insurance. We really appreciate the opportunity. For a lot of reasons, but one of the reasons is that we are very fortunate. We insure several associations in the Tierra Verde area, St. Pete Beach, Tierra Verde area. Okay, we insure a tremendous amount in this area, so we're very familiar with the associations, the insurance carriers, in rural area. So, like Del said, I'm Anthony. I specialize only in association insurance. This is the insurance that myself and my team practice all week long. I'm talking to you out of our St. Petersburg office here by Tyrone Mall. The office has been here since 1995. Great Florida Insurance does have 125 off Florida. We're only in Florida. That's where we practice, and I'm out of the St. Petersburg office. And again, specializing only in association and with board members and managers. I'm putting together insurance plans, and as Del said, we also do offer homeowners insurance for our communities. So a lot of our clients find great value in our agency's expertise with handling or working with the homeowners on their personal homeowners insurance needs. So yes, we do homeowners insurance, personal flood insurance, personal umbrella insurance. Okay, so we have a very big group of agents in our agency here, and we specialize in different areas, but all association related. Okay, we have a very good retention. In 2019, we had a 100% retention rate. And then in 2020, we have a 99% retention rate. In the Tampa Bay area, out of our office, we assist about 220 to 221 community associations. So some of these associations are one building, most of them are many buildings. So again, thanks for having me. That's a quick background of my agency, what we're up to, and And so, as Bill said earlier, I have been presented with some questions already, which is exciting, and then it sounds like we may have some new questions as well. So, what I'd like to do is read some of these questions and then provide some answers. I have a lot of continuing education courses that we teach that are state approved, and if anyone community or is to do one of those courses at one point, we can certainly look into that. But for today, we've got some very good questions, and I know especially Richard mentioned about property rates and what they're doing and what's going on and why they're going up. So we'll definitely get into that, okay? But if it's okay with everyone, I'm going to read the first question. Is that good with everyone? All right, so what we talked about is that we have a hurricane, okay? The hurricane does damage, a lot of damage to the association, okay? So it's important to know how the insurance all work together, right? So with a hurricane, we're going to have wind damage, and we're going to have oftentimes flood damage. So starting with the association's two policies first, the association has a wind policy. Any association, or every association that is in a flood zone, has a flood policy. So we're going to have storm surge inside of a home or several homes, okay? And so let's start with that. The way that works is, number one, the board member or management company manager, they're going to contact the agent, and the agent of the association is going to contact the insurance carrier. The insurance carrier they're going to have a wind insurance carrier and a flood insurance carrier, and there's an adjuster that's going to come from the wind carrier and the flood carrier. So starting with the flood adjuster comes out, and what the flood adjusters do is they look for water lines. When they go into your clubhouse, when they go into your home, they're going to be looking for water lines. And I have this rule of thumb: on average, what we find is that flood water is about 4K. That seems to be on average what's going on there. And I get that because the plywood for the inside of the drywall is typically in sheets of 4x6 as well. So the flood adjuster comes in, they're looking for the water lines. The flood adjuster is going to pay for the water line down, right? So any storm surge, any wet water gets in there. So what I'm saying is the bottom half of the drywall, the flooring, kitchen cabinetry, if those are wet from storm surge, the flood insurance policy for the association will cover those items. But what about the drywall above the water line that's not wet from floodwaters? Maybe it's wet from the window that broke or is blown in and the rain on the drywall. Okay. What about the fan? What about the roof of the building that's not damaged by floodwaters? So the association's wind, any drywall damage that's damaged from wind or rain, because flood is only rising water. Flood policy is only paying rising water. So what about rain on, that gets the drywall wet, or the damage of the roof? So the association's policy is going to pay to replace that damaged drywall, that damaged roof. Now, going back to the flood side, the only reason a homeowner would have a personal flood insurance policy in place is in the event any of their personal belongings get wet from the rising water. So if their computer with the Zoom camera is damaged, right? If their rug, their bedding, if those items are wet from rising water, storm surge, then the resident's personal policy would cover their personal belongings that got wet from the rising water, storm surge. So far we've talked about the wind policy for the association, We talked about the flood policy for the association. And we talked about the flood policy for the homeowner. So 3 separate policies so far, and they all work differently. The 4th policy, which the homeowner we recommend they have, is a homeowner's policy for a condominium unit owner. It's called an HO6 policy. What this policy will cover is anything inside of the home that the personal flood policy or the association flood policy or the association wind policy will not cover. So we know that the wind could pay for the drywall that wasn't wet by storm surge. But who's going to pay for the painting of that drywall? Who's going to pay for the wallpaper or texture on the drywall? Who's going to pay for the crown molding on the ceiling? Who's going to pay for the paint on the ceiling? Who's going to pay for the ceiling fan that's damaged? The answer is your HO6 policy. Your home policy will pay for any wind damage that from the hurricane that is not covered by the association's flood policy and the association's wind policy. And then within the HO6 policy, there's 2 very important features. Loss of use, which will pay for you to stay at a hotel or a Vrbo or Airbnb if you can't occupy your home. And then loss assessment coverage. $2,000 of loss assessment coverage, which is meant to help deal with hurricane deductibles. So that is how the 4 policies work. I know it's confusing. I know it's complicated. I'm happy to do the educational program specifically on this, but for today's purpose, that is the 4 policies and how they work. There is a need for really all 4 policies in most cases, and they do work in conjunction together. Why we're talking about this, and I get this question a lot, is that what happens in the event of a hurricane and I have to move out of my home? What policy works? What does the association's policy cover my loss of use, we call it? And the answer to that question is that the homeowner's HO6 policy will cover loss of use, or if you're renting your unit, loss of rent. So during Hurricane Irma, we did have several homeowners that needed to find a different place to live until it was restored to its original condition. And there is coverage in the homeowner's policy called loss of use, or if you're renting your home, loss of rent. So it will pay for your stay outside of the association, whether you're staying in a Vrbo or a hotel or wherever. You want to keep your receipts. You want to submit those to your homeowner's insurance carrier as they continue to accumulate, and you will get money for at your association home. Okay. So that, and I guess why we're talking about this, let's go to another topic within the homeowner's policy. And I talked about that. So this morning I've had 2 different board meetings. When I say board meeting, they're insurance meetings, whether it's a insurance renewal meeting or with all of our clients, we also have a midterm meeting where we meet with them not just once a year, but twice a year, midterm, to go over the coverages, to take a look and answer questions and look at projections for the insurance premiums. But one of the things we talked about this morning, which is an important topic, it really is that in 2010, the statute changed And there was a couple different changes, but one of the changes was that every homeowner's insurance policy. So when I say homeowner's insurance policy, again, I'm referring to the HO6 policy, which is primarily, the carriers are primarily Universal Property and Casualty or Heritage Insurance, Federated National. Okay, those are Citizens Insurance. They all have automatically, as of 2010, every one of them has $2,000 of loss assessment coverage in the policy. It's automatically in there. It's very important. Loss assessment coverage is in there, is in the policy automatically, and it's always $2,000. Can you increase it? Yes, but it's automatically $2,000. The reason that exists is to deal with the high hurricane deductibles that we have in the state of Florida. Historically, the state of Florida is somewhat hurricane prone, and the insurance carriers know that, and so they do have higher deductibles than for a fire or a water loss typically. So in this case, it's $50,000, okay, a hurricane deductible. So a lot of associations, and the numbers are typically higher. Typically, the hurricane deductible is $600,000, or but let's just use this example that's been presented with a $50,000 hurricane deductible. Our damage to our building is $45,000. What do? It doesn't make sense to use the insurance policy, the deductible. So we can take money out of our hurricane fund or reserve. A lot of associations look at what I call a property assessment. I know assessments is a bad word, right? I get it, but this is a property assessment. What that means is we don't want to take money from our reserve. What we want to do is reach out to our homeowners and allow them the opportunity to get loss assessment coverage up to $2,000. So if we need to collect $45,000 and we have 20 homeowners in this community, then what we could do is we could assess all 20 homeowners a little over $2,000. And again, it's a property assessment. It's not a special assessment for painting projects or it's specific to property damage. And I know I repeat myself a lot, but this can get very complicated and very confusing, so very clear. So what we could do in this example is reach out to our membership. What happens is the attorney for the association writes a letter of assessment. The letter of assessment goes out to the homeowner. The homeowner takes this letter, they give it to their insurance carrier. Their insurance carrier gives them, in this case, $2,000. And then the homeowner gives that money to the association. And there's no deductible that applies, and it is not looked at as a negative to the homeowner's insurance carrier, because it's a catastrophic event. The homeowner's insurance carrier is not going to, it is a claim, it is, but it's not a negative. It's not going to hurt the ability of that homeowner to shop the insurance. And what it's designed to do is what I'm describing, is that it's designed to deal with the losses underneath these high hurricane deductibles. So instead of borrowing money, we can reach out to the membership, and the membership can pitch in up to $2,000. So in this example, we get 2,000 times 20 homeowners. That brings us to that $45,000 deductible to cover it. Now I realize a lot of our buildings, most of our buildings, the replacement cost is $20 million. The hurricane deductible is 3%. That's $600,000. So, in that case, we let's say there's 100 residents, we reach out, that's 100 times 2,000. So we get 200,000 towards the $600,000 deductible. So if your association experiences a hurricane, I'm more than happy to work with any of your association attorneys or resident board members in helping them to navigate through this. But our agency is, we use this when there's a hurricane. We've had a lot of success with it, and really that's how the policies coordinate. And the two most important, well, a couple of the most important things on that policy, the H06 policy, is loss of use and then this loss assessment coverage. Okay, going with me? All right, and that's fine. So if you have questions, I welcome them. Sometimes it's when there are questions because it's hard to remember to talk about everything. Some other things that we've had
Anthony,
yes.
It takes us a while to unmute here, but we're unmuted now, and I'll ask one question.
Yes, Bill.
With regards to the deductible that an association would have for a hurricane coverage, is there any requirement that an association has to cover that amount with either a line of credit or a reserve fund? I think it's a misinterpretation that some associations have that they're required to do so, and it might be wise to do so, but I don't think that's a requirement, is it?
I do not know it to be a requirement, Bill. What I do know is in statute 718, the insurance section, it says the association must use its best efforts. Okay, so it's not a requirement, but the association must use its best efforts to pick a hurricane deductible that matches what they think they can cover. I mean, that's hard to do, right? I mean, we have a $20 million building. The hurricane deductible is 5%. That's $1 million deductible. There's not a lot of associations that can have that type of money. So the answer is no. We have to use our best efforts. That's all that we can do.
Another question relative to what you were talking about in terms of your retention rate, which is really quite high for policies. But what's the process when associations do want to change who their agent is or agency is? How does that work? Because I believe that the insurance companies don't want to be quoting on the same building to a few different agents. So how does that all work?
Yeah, so that's a frustrating part of shopping the insurance for associations. So as I said earlier, our agency, not only do we write association insurance policies, but we also do home insurance, personal flood insurance, umbrella insurance, boat insurance. And so it's very different. So if you call our agency, one of our agents can give you 5 or 6 different quotes for your home insurance. If you call our agency, one of our agents can give you different options for your umbrella insurance. When it comes to the association insurance, at this point in time, there still is a limited number of property and liability insurance carriers that are doing business, and especially the Tampa Bay area. There's enough to have competition, but there's not an abundance. And the property and liability insurance carriers insuring in the Tampa Bay area, and really throughout Florida, but especially in the Tampa Bay area, they like to work with one agent instead of having their underwriters provide quotes for 5 different agents for the same community. The underwriters from the carriers take the stance, and I understand that this should be the same. I mean, the building is the building, whether it's either it's a frame building or it's a concrete building. So it should not be that much different premium. So we want to work with one agent. So I do understand the carrier's position, right? I mean, if we're tying their underwriters up with giving 5 for the same quotes out, then that's not a good use of the insurance carrier's time. I understand that. So what we do is we it really comes down to the association interviewing different agents, and making sure, by interviewing different agents, I'm making sure that your current agent is acting as an advocate for your association, all right? I can only speak on behalf of our agency. I know that we absolutely act as advocates for our clients. We are out there, we go to the association. We meet with our clients at least twice a year. We're getting information like roof updates and has the building been painted? The agent has to stay current on what is going on with the association in order to put together an insurance plan that makes any sense. If the association has taken title to a home, so sometimes some associations, someone's behind on their maintenance fees, what are we going to do? The association takes title at some point. If the association is renting that unit out and someone's injured in that unit, well, the agent is going to want to propose, hey, we need to extend liability insurance coverage and the name of the association to this unit. So that way, because the association's on title, the association's protected. So there's things that come up. So your agent needs to be meeting with basis and exploring and making sure that that coverage is watertight and bulletproof. Now, the short answer is that it is hard to get quotes from multiple agents. So if you're happy with your agent, you feel like they're doing a good job, then you may want to consider staying with that agent. If you feel like you want to explore and see what else is out there, you will hear a lot of hard numbers or quotes, unless we're the agent of record. So I do realize and I understand the frustration that can be presented there, right? And so that's really how it works. Now, every once in a while, there's an insurance carrier, a property or a liability insurance carrier that one agency has that the other doesn't have. So those are things that could work. This insurance agent apply an insurance carrier the other agency doesn't have. So, but those are kind of few and far between.
Are there differences that the agent sees in terms of, for example, real estate commissions are usually 6%, but sometimes they're 5%, sometimes they're 4%. Is the commission that the agent's going to get the same for all the insurance companies?
So no, they're not. The insurance carriers do have different commission structures, and so yeah, I mean they really, what I see anywhere, the commission for property insurance carriers is anywhere from 10%, maybe 15%. They vary, maybe a couple higher depending on the volume you're doing. Average is anywhere from 10% to 15% is the commission that these insurance carriers are providing. Okay, so, and I hope that you're not working with an agent that's selling on the commission structure, because that's not, our agency does not do that. We're in this for the long run, and we're not in it for an extra few percent, but okay. So.
Okay. Thanks for those answers.
Thanks for the questions. Richard has a question, please. Yes, Richard. Yeah.
This is relative to the HO6 policy, the individual, say unit owner, individual homeowner would have versus an association. Thanks for providing some insight in terms of the importance of that. Let's say in the situation, using the hurricane again, that the residence is loss of use or loss of rental funds. What are the parameters in those? Are there standard parameters? And if there are, if someone could probably say, all right, I'm not comfortable, I'm just going to use 3 months. It may be longer, but I come from New Jersey, and Hurricane Sandy, they were friends of mine that was years they were out. So what are the parameters around that, and specifically here?
Okay. So I spend most of my life with association insurance policies, and I really would like to get one of my agents to answer that question, because there's a very specific question. So Richard, if I could email the answer to that question, I really appreciate it, because I'm afraid to get into the specifics because I don't deal with the specifics a lot. So if I could get back with you, but I understand the question is, what are the parameters for the loss of use? And am I going to get an unlimited amount? It's typically a percentage of the dwelling coverage, and I can't remember right now what the percentage is. So, but I will get that answer.
That's
How
fine.
that works. Okay, so thank you for that. And I
We
wrote
can
that
figure it afterwards, but thank you. It's important for us to all look at our policies again, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll look at how we would get on
Thank you.
average
Thank you.
for the average insurance policy. Thank you. Another question that we have that really ties into still what we're talking about is, do all policies cover ordinance or law coverage? There's an insurance coverage that is called ordinance or law coverage. And the answer is, number one, is the question is, do all policies include ordinance or law coverage? And the answer to that is no. Not all policies cover it. We highly recommend that the association has, we highly recommend that the homeowner's insurance policy has ordinance or law coverage. And what ordinance or law coverage covers is, it covers the increased cost of construction in the event the condominium association building is damaged. And the threshold for this to respond is there has to be 50%, so 50, has to be 50% of the replacement cost and damage. So for example, if the building that is being insured, the replacement cost based on a recent insurance appraisal is $10 million, the damage has to be over $5 million. So the damage would have to be $7 or $8 million. If that is the case, then the local city, the local municipality, is not going to allow that building to be rebuilt unless it's built to current code. And the ordinance or law coverage is going to give money for that increased cost of construction. So if the building, and again, the key is the damage has to be over 50% of the replacement cost of the building that's damaged. So if the building needs to have an updated fire suppression system, that would be covered under the ordinance or law coverage. If the we deal with aluminum wiring. A lot of associations in this area have aluminum wiring. That has to be remediated, or it has to be changed to copper wiring. Okay, to get to current code. There are a couple items that are on my mind that we work with a lot that are not to current code. So that ordinance or law coverage is going to pay for the association's policy, going to pay for the items I've mentioned. Now, the homeowner's insurance policy, we do recommend that the homeowner's insurance policy has ordinance or law coverage in it as well. And why we're on this hurricane example, I'll explain why that would be. In the event of a named hurricane, the association's property insurance policy will replace any sliding glass doors or any windows that are damaged by the hurricane event. The association's property will pay for original, like-kind windows or sliding glass doors to be installed. Now, the key to that is that in the replacement cost that the appraiser's providing every 3 years, the replacement cost for the windows and the sliding glass doors, the replacement cost is in there, and it's based on original like kind, but to current code. Specifically, let's say sliding glass doors demolished. You paid $20,000 for your sliding glass doors because they're a specific type, specific brand you want goes back. the association's insurance carrier will pay for 2 current code sliding glass doors. So if you pay $20,000 for yours, you may not get the 20,000 ones. You may get ones that are 2 current code, but not the exact ones you wanted. And maybe the association gives you or puts in these sliding glass doors that are $15,000. But you want your sliding glass doors back, the one, that certain brand, the ones you fell in love with. Difference of what the association gives you, which in this case is $15,000. So the difference of $15,000 and what you paid of $20,000, that $5,000, you would get from the ordinance or law section in your homeowner's insurance policy. Okay, I know this is confusing, but that's how that works. All right. So thanks for letting me explain that. Why flood insurance? I spend a lot of time. We do a tremendous amount of flood insurance for associations. It's one of our primary focuses, and we have a lot of experience with flood insurance. So the very common question lately, which I totally understand, is a lot of our board members and managers are calling and saying, hey, there's new flood maps out, and how does that affect our association? How does that, or is our premium going to go up? So yes, on June 28th of 2018, so June 20th of 2018, FEMA issued preliminary maps. Okay, and how this works is there's a remapping process. In this area, the remapping process, actually it was going on a few years before these preliminary maps were put out there. All right. And what happens now, and what's been happening, is once the preliminary maps are issued, there's a discussion phase for residents and interested parties to comment on. Any objections to the proposed revisions have to be addressed and resolved prior to the actual adoption. So the process is heavily dependent upon the community and FEMA coordinating and reaching a final determination. Since the revision involves multiple communities and multiple counties, there is a lot of coordinating that is taking place before this is ratified. So the short answer, or what I'm saying, is that the latest we're hearing is these new maps may be adopted in October of this year. Okay, and that would be great because, quite frankly, they've been out since June of 2018. It's been almost 3 years in June. It'd be nice to roll these out, right? So Hillsborough County, it took them like 4 years, I think, from when their preliminary maps were out. So we're reaching 3 years being here in 2021. So the maps have not been implemented. They have not been approved. So insurance agents cannot use these new maps to help with your insurance premium. What we're advising our clients is that for the associations that have had continued coverage, they're going to be rewarded because you're going to be able to keep your grandfathering. So if you're in a velocity zone right now, which has to do with storm surge and wave wash, but your agent, or if you're one of our clients, our agency has been able to find a prior map in an A zone rather than a velocity zone, and we've been able to grandfather you to a different map, which drives down the premium, you will be able to keep that lower premium even when these new maps are adopted. And I'm sharing this because there's a lot of anxiety around this topic. Again, because if you are keeping your flood insurance, if the association, not you, but if the associations are keeping your flood insurance in place, okay, the National Flood Insurance Program, FEMA, will reward you by saying, okay, you can use this new map if it's going to benefit you. If it's going to deter you, or not deter you, sorry, but if it's going to make your premium increase, then you can stay grandfathered into an old map. Okay. But it is important that we look your, what your flood zone is going to. And I have a question here from Ken.
Yeah,
So
can
Ken, go ahead.
I ask you a question, Anthony?
Please.
Is it likely that these maps will be less generous in terms of flood insurance or more generous?
Well, in the Tia Verde area, what I've seen so far is they would be more generous. I'm a little bit dumbfounded by what I'm seeing. Like, for example, some of the communities that are right on the water, the preliminary maps show them to be not in a special hazard flood zone, which means they don't even have. I would advise my board of directors to really look at that, meaning I know that the National Flood Insurance Program is saying this association does not have to have flood insurance based on its preliminary maps, but you're right on the water. I know you're not on the Gulf of Mexico like on St. Pete Beach, but you have that bay there, the Pasadena waterways and stuff. So you could very well have flooding. So I'm very anxious of what our boards may do or consider doing once the maps are adopted. And Ken, you're going to see these associations are not going to have, they're not required to have flood insurance, which it does make me very anxious. But
well, one other question. In Dolphin Cay, we had put in 2 walls between Bogaciga Bay and buildings and gotten some reductions based on that. Is that likely to be a continuing possibility?
Okay. All right. So the answer to that question, and I'm very familiar with that, what happened there. So there's a gentleman named Eric that used to have an insurance agency, and he didn't want to have the insurance agency anymore. He was doing more. He wants to do more of the underwriting, that kind of stuff. So I actually bought his insurance agency, and Eric works with I'm incredibly familiar with that because the guy that works with us is the one that did that work at Dolphin Cay. That he built a wave attenuation wall. I think the cost was about $300,000, and the premium overall went from like $700,000 down to I think there's only one association that still has a flood insurance policy that's over $100,000. So I'm very familiar with Dolphin Cay. So the answer to that is that their agency can do that are really outside the box in most cases because of our knowledge and our flood insurance experience. So what I'm saying there is that there's letter of map amendments, letter of map revisions, wave attenuation walls. There's different. If you have any, speaking to our principals and then also the membership, if you have any questions or need any help with your flood insurance premium, we have a lot of tools, and Ken just mentioned one of them. So I do know specifically about the good news, and that, Ken, you're referring to the Osprey building at Dolphin Cay, so I'm very familiar.
Actually, that's one of the 2. There's another one on the other side of the campus by that beach.
Okay. So the new preliminary maps actually show the Osprey building not being in that velocity zone. They do show it in a better flood zone. So
great.
So which will help the premium. So for and that's not always the case. That's why I answered the question the way I did, is that oftentimes it's more negative, but I'm very familiar with Ken's scenario, and that particular association, when these maps are adopted, will have a big win. Okay. Thank you again for the question.
Thank you.
A couple other Nancy has a question. Yes.
I was just wondering, how often do you have to get an elevation survey? And then if you do get the elevation survey, and the flood maps have not been ratified, how does this all fit into an individual using the elevation study to show their insurance company? That would be like probably an HO6 I'm talking about.
So the elevation certificates, uh, certificate does is a couple different things, but it helps the insurance carrier identify the risk associated with providing flood insurance to the homeowner as well as to the association. And there's different measurements on the elevation certificate, and it all has to do with how high or how below sea level you are, your base flood elevation, and all of those factors that go, or excuse me, all of those components in the elevation certificate helps the insurance carriers or to come up with how much the flood insurance premium is. So elevation certificates are not like a wind mitigation inspection, and they're not like an appraisal, where we know for an insurance appraisal for an association, we have to have an insurance appraisal per Florida Statute 718 no less than every 36. We know for wind mitigations, for a wind mitigation inspection for a homeowner, not the association, but wind mitigation inspection for the homeowner, most of the insurance carriers for the homeowners are not using the wind mitigation form unless the wind mitigation forms are 5 years older or within 5 years. They have to be 5 years or less. When it comes to elevation certificates, they're specific to flood insurance, and there is not we're using elevation certificates from 92 or 83. So we don't have to get a new elevation certificate unless there's a new building. Because chances are is that, unless there's a lot of sinking with that building, the elevation is not generally going to change that much, okay? So even with these new maps, for the associations part of it, I don't see any reason that we would have an elevation certificate performed for the association's insurance. And even really for the homeowner's insurance. There's the elevation certificate that exists, and the agent should be able to provide proof that, here's the new flood map and here's the elevation certificate. So the answer would be we really don't see a need for a new elevation certificate unless there's a brand new building or a significant soil deterioration, or okay, that would be the answer. And that's an interesting question, because a lot of our associations do not have an elevation certificate. A lot of our associations were built before January 1st of 1975. And why that date is important is that associations and homeowners were allowed to enter the National Flood Insurance Program prior to January 1st, 1975 without an elevation certificate. So a lot of associations don't have them. So when we run into homeowners that, hey, I need an elevation certificate for mine, often the association is not going to have one. So, but the association get one, or the homeowner can get one. So thank you for that question. I hope I answered it the way.
Thank you.
Well, thank you. A couple other topics that are hot on the table right now, and I'm sure you're familiar with these, is that the subrogation issue. I have a lot of these questions. We have a lot of homeowners insurance carriers subrogating against the associations, and it's really causing a huge problem for insurance premiums and the general liability insurance carriers in the state of Florida. As we mentioned before, the statute 718, the governing statute for condominium associations in the state of Florida, there was a change to some verbiage in the Florida statute, and the old verbiage used to state specifically that the unit owner or the unit owner's insurance carrier are now, as of they're now subrogating against the association. So we have a homeowner's insurance carrier, a pipe burst in the drywall, and the damage from the damage to the homeowner, which is the kitchen cabinetry and flooring, for example. Let's say the damage is $15,000. So the homeowner's insurance carrier pays the homeowner $15,000. Homeowner's happy. But what's happening a lot of the time is the homeowner's insurance carrier is looking to recoup that $15,000. They're saying, hey, that's not my fault that pipe burst in the drywall. That's the association's fault. Is it? I don't know. Probably not. But so have an influx because of this issue with the statute changing, the verbiage changing, where we have a tremendous amount of homeowners insurance carriers subrogating, asking for the money they paid to the homeowner, they want it back. And when we get these subrogation letters, we're turning those into the general liability insurance carrier, which is increasing the premiums. So that's a hot topic, and unfortunately, that has not gotten any better as of yet. Okay, and I respect what your group does. I know you're working with a lot of the legislators in Tallahassee, and I know you're strong advocates for insurance change and reform in the state of Florida, and I have a lot of respect for that. In the second topic that comes up a lot, benefits, the AOB. Florida did make some statute changes in 2009 to help reduce the assignment of benefits, and I'm very hopeful that we're going to see some relief from that. We really haven't been able to see a lot of relief from that. When I say relief, lower premiums from the liability carriers, we haven't seen that because of Hurricane Irma primarily. Okay, Hurricane Irma was in 2017. The statute limitations for property claims right now is 3 years. A tremendous amount of property claims and litigation around property claims, litigation against insurance carriers. So we have not seen a good reduction from the assignment of benefits, but because there was some changes to the statute, we will, but we need to get over this Irma thing, which is starting to dissolve itself here a little bit. Okay. All right. So again, those are just two more hot topics that I have a lot of, I get a lot of questions on. Other than that, let me see if there's anything else here that we haven't covered. Admitted and surplus lines. This is important. So one of the questions that came across the wire here is differences. What's the difference and advantage of a admitted carrier versus a surplus lines insurance carrier? Would you like me to talk about that, or do you have a good familiarity with admitted versus?
I think it'd be a good idea to talk about it a little bit. I think the FIGA coverage is something that's pretty significant. At least some associations look at it as pretty significant.
So there's two types of property, and so when we're talking about, today we're talking about admitted versus surplus lines carriers related to property insurance carriers, please. Okay. When I say property insurance carriers, these are the carriers that provide coverage in the event of property damage. So wind damage, fire damage. So admitted versus surplus lines. An admitted insurance carrier is an insurance carrier that's approved to do business in the state of Florida. And they're backed by FIGA, F-I-G-A. They're backed by the Florida Insurance Guarantee Association. So if an admitted insurance carrier has issues financially, the state of Florida will respond by picking up the coverage. The coverage for, I think since like 1975 or 77, the coverage was dollars per unit. So 100 units times 100,000, or whatever, however many units you have in your association. That has been recently changed to $200,000. So it went from 100,000 to $200,000. So FIGA will back up to $200,000, which is better than 100,000. That's one advantage to an admitted insurance carrier. Another advantage to an admitted insurance carrier is that they have to file for rate increases with the Florida Office of Insurance Regulation. So they can't, the insurance carrier can't just raise their premium 80%. They have to apply with the Florida Office of Insurance Regulation. Surplus lines insurance carriers, if they have solvency issues, they're not backed by the Florida Insurance Guarantee Association. And surplus lines insurance carriers do not have to file with the Florida OIR for rate increases and rate decreases. So admitted insurance carriers are a safer option, depending, just let me say this. There's admitted carriers and surplus lines carriers. It is important that your agent look at the financials of both of those to make sure that the financials are there. Okay, let me just say that first. But assuming the financials are there, assuming these are strong, rated companies, A-rated companies, admitted carriers do have more security than a surplus lines insurance carrier. They just do. Okay, there's a lot of different components within the policy that makes them safer. Plus, the admitted carriers have to buy the Florida Hurricane Catastrophe Fund, which is just another layer of reinsurance. Okay, so admitted carriers are everything equal. Surplus line versus admitted carrier, the financials, they're strong companies. Admitted carriers are a safer option. Okay. And then the FIGA or the Florida Insurance Guarantee Association, that went from 100,000 to 200,000, which is big too. Okay, what other question? We covered a lot of material. I think we covered a lot of these questions. This was kind of interesting, this question. Recommendations on how to effectively work and negotiate a settlement with insurance companies. The carriers that we use, we really don't run into issues with insurance claims. So this question must have come from with insurance carriers that the board of directors or management felt like was not treating the board or association correctly. But we really, again, it says recommendations on how to effectively work and negotiate a settlement with an insurance company, claims adjuster, negotiate a settlement with an insurance company's claims adjuster during the claims process. So if you have a hurricane, if you have a fire, if you have pipe bursts behind you have, one of the things you want to do for sure is reach out to your agent. Your agent contacts the insurance carrier, and the insurance carrier signs an adjuster. And in our office, we do definitely get involved with any situations that may arise. I mean, during Hurricane Irma, we had so many properties that were damaged that it would often take a week for the claims adjuster to get out there. So we would stay in tune with that, We would stay in tune with, okay, let's not get out here any sooner, okay? But once the adjuster's there, really, they're taking pictures, they're adjusting the loss, we call it. You know, they're determining the replacement cost of the carport that's damaged or the building that's damaged, and we really don't run into issues with insurance carriers having claims. So I'm probably not a great person to answer this question, because we just haven't had any, because we use carriers that do a really good job. And I will say there's another thing that ties into this that I got, is that insurance carriers get involved with like tarping the roof and you know, they get involved with the remediation. The answer to that question is there are some insurance carriers that prefer that you use their restoration company or mitigation, or one of their preferred companies. Okay, and I understand that. You know, number one with that is that the carrier wants to help control the cost. You know, we want to make sure that the carrier wants to make sure that they're adequately covering and adequately replacing, and these estimates are not inflated. Okay, because we do have an issue with restoration companies inflating prices, which means the carrier has to pay more, which means we all have to pay more in insurance. So there are a couple carriers at least that like to get involved and recommend a restoration or mitigation company come in, because they're comfortable with that they're comfortable with that mitigation company, that, you know, water attraction company or contracting company. So what I'm saying is that often your insurance carriers will provide suggestions on what company you would use, and it typically is a win-win that way. So, all right, what other questions do we have? I don't know. I think I've covered that have been presented, but I could have missed a few.
Anthony, one question that individuals might have is, what responsibilities do they have after a major damage to their building? Is it the association's responsibility to, you know, board up, dry out? And even when it's not a major event, it could be something that, for example, happens during a water leak that happens during the summertime when they're not around. What obligations do they have to have someone coming in to check the building and make sure that they're not going to be walking in October to a den of mold?
Well, so thank you. That's a good question. And what I did here, I get that question sometimes. And again, we have agents here that do nothing but homeowners insurance. And so what I did is I did ask this question to one of our homeowners insurance. So I'm just going to read this. It says that, so like Universal Property and Casualty, they have a question on their application if someone checks the unit, if we treat the unit as seasonal or secondary. Federated National asks for caretaker information and say they will not cover any damage if they don't have the caretaker. So the synopsis here is that the homeowner's insurance care, this is two. So Bill, I hear you loud and clear. There's two things within that. Number one is that some of the insurance carriers do have a clause in their policy jacket that if someone is not checking the unit every 2 weeks, or a caretaker is not checking the unit, and there's damage to the interior of that home from water, that the carrier has the right to not provide coverage. Okay, I could get more specific, but I'd have to get one of my homeowners insurance agents to help with that. Within this question, and this comes up a lot, is that we have a pipe that bursts in the drywall, or a hot water heater breaks, and there's a lot of damage to the drywall. In the association's property insurance policy, under the loss section, there's a section called duties of insured for the association's property policy, which is hundreds of pages. One of the sections is duties of the insured. And one of the duties of the insured, which is the association, is to prevent any further damage to association property. So if we have drywall that's wet, we need to act on it. We need to get a restoration company in there, mitigation company in there, and drill holes in the drywall to get the water out, or sometimes they have to tear the drywall out. And unfortunately, that often means the drywall behind the kitchen cabinets. So we do often get, not real happy people, or the association's mitigation company, they ripped out my kitchen cabinets, and I understand. But what the association's doing is they're aligning with their contract that they've signed every year. The policy says you have to prevent further damage to association property. So if the drywall is damaged behind the kitchen cabinets and the restoration company has to get to it, they're going to take the kitchen cabinets off, and they're going to repair and to get to that drywall to stop any further damage to any of the drywall. Okay, so the association's policy is going to pay for that drywall, and then the replacement of the kitchen cabinets in this specific example would be the HO6 policy would pay for that. Okay, so the association has the responsibility to replace the drywall and make sure that there's not more drywall damage than there should be by letting the water sit. The resident has the responsibility of assisting the association with if the kitchen cabinets need to come out, they need to come out. But as far as the homeowner's responsibility or their duties, the adjusters, often the adjusters will get out there pretty quickly, but it's a very good idea to take pictures, if you're a homeowner, to take pictures of your damaged property, so there's no confusion with, I had bamboo wood flooring, and that's the flooring I need back, and my kitchen countertops are granite, I need that back. So I would recommend that we do take pictures or video of the inside of the home. That helps. So Bill, hopefully I've answered a little bit of your question there.
I think that's good.
It's a hard question to answer, but
I think it's important for both associations and owners to work together, because if an owner is not letting the association get in to check the damage and to do the whatever mitigation is needed, they're both going to lose in the end. There's still be more damage.
And what I totally understand too, just to accent on that, Bill, what I totally get is that Florida condominium insurance works much differently than a lot of other states. There's a lot of responsibility put onto the homeowner. Okay, the homeowner in this state is responsible for insuring the entire interior of their home. It's not like that in different states, in other states. So what happens, a lot of people move here, they're not familiar, and then there's a hot water heater that breaks on the 4th floor, and this person's on the 3rd, they don't get it. So there's a tremendous amount of pros for living in condos, and there's also a couple cons or just things to be aware of. So I have a lot of respect for the residents that live in these communities and our board members especially, and we're always trying to educate our communities.
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir, I can hear you.
Hi, Anthony. It's Gene Labar. How are you?
Hey, Gene. I haven't seen you in a while. Good to see you.
Well, Bill brought up a good question, but we lived through that, as you know, with the sprinkler problem here. And the DKI, who came out to dry it out, they billed each of the unit people. That's why they went in to do that, the dry out. My question, I got two quick questions.
Sure.
And the first one, I'm sure I know the answer. But that lost assessment, that's only hurricanes, right?
It's only for, let's say this, it's not for flood insurance. It's not for rising water. The flood, it will not respond to an assessment for flooding. It will respond for an assessment for in this case, let's say hurricane damage. So I'm going to say yes.
Okay, and the last question I have is, we had a couple owners with no insurance. They did not have insurance. Of course, they came after us, and I could have said, call Tony or Anthony, but you know, what they expect, you know, they expect us guys to pay for their problem. But is there a law? I've heard there is, I heard there isn't, I heard they have it. I think, Bill, you told me that they have it, but they don't enforce it. But if they were to push it, what's going to happen with them? They're not going to get the money. They don't have the insurance.
Thank you for this scenario, and I get this scenario a lot. A tremendous amount. This is interesting. Just we had a resident that lives in or actually he is seasonal, so he has a unit over here in an association in Inner Rocks Beach, and he owns an insurance agency, and he did not have any insurance. And what happened was there was a sewer backup problem where there was someone that was putting diapers or whatnot on the upper floor. They're putting down the toilet, and as a result, this person on the first floor, and his toilet overflowed, bathtub overflowed, and there was sewage all over the place. So he was responsible for the entire interior of his home. You know, kitchen cabinets, flooring, appliances. The association was responsible just for the drywall. Okay, so his damage was about $19,000 to just his property, his flooring. Okay, so he was very upset, and he really wanted the association to pay for this damage. Okay, because he didn't have an insurance policy, and you know, and so what happens there, the resident becomes irritated, and I understand it. Is it the resident's fault that the pipe burst in the drywall? Is it the resident's fault that there was a sewer backup? No, probably not. But we go by the statute. The statute that Florida OIR created, this is how it works, okay? So the homeowner is responsible for the interior, association is responsible for the drywall. So we work with a lot of residents that don't have insurance, and they really try to do, a lot of times, try to do everything they can pay. Now, in 2008, the Florida Statute 718 stated that every homeowner had to show proof of their homeowner's insurance policy no more than once a year. What that means is that they had to have insurance. Every homeowner had to have insurance. In July of 2010, that went away. Statute changed in states, or stated that unit owners no longer have to show proof of their insurance more than once a year. What that means is homeowners do not have to have, per statute, an insurance policy in place. So the fact is, the statute states homeowners do not have to have an insurance policy in place. Can an association require a homeowner to have insurance on their home? Can we amend the association documents to state that if you live here, you're going to have an HO6? As I talk to the attorneys about amending the documents, a lot of attorneys will help to amend the documents to state that if you live here, you're going to have an HO6 policy, and you're going to show us proof. The issue that the attorneys are having, and the way that the attorneys are explaining it to me, is there's still an enforcement mechanism issue. Meaning, the problem, if the attorney adds that verbiage into the association documents, it's still very hard to enforce. It's very hard to get a copy of everyone's homeowner's insurance policy to make sure that they have an insurance policy. So what I'm saying is that per statute, no, residents don't have to have an insurance policy. Do we recommend they have an insurance policy? Absolutely. If they're not going to have an insurance policy, do we recommend that they know what they're self-insuring for? But the other side of that is that you can add in your documents that if you live here, you have to have a policy. But I would talk to your attorney about the enforcement mechanism. That's the problem, is that how are we going to get 282 unit owners or 50 unit owners or 100 unit owners policies? Thank you for that question.
Okay, we've covered a lot of territory today, and I'd like to thank you, Anthony, for offering all of your experience and stories. That makes it more interesting for us to hear what you have to say. And we could probably go on for another few hours, but
We could,
we need to keep this at a reasonable time. And
Sure.
look forward to having you back another time, sometime in the future, to talk further about this. And I think also that if there are associations that would like to talk to you one-on-one, what we'll do is toward the end of this video, put your contact information on the screen so that they can have it. So before we end, does anybody have a final question that they'd like to ask that is a major thing that we've missed? Put our gallery view on right now. Anybody have something that they want to talk about? Harold, did you raise your hand?
Yes, just on the subject we just talked about, talking about requirement for insurance, but does that, let's assume you don't have to have insurance, or that regulation is not in in the regs. How about the fact, if you don't have insurance, do you still have the association have the right to refuse to pay for it, for the damage?
Well, now the association would only pay for the association's responsibility for any of the homeowners, meaning if that pipe burst in the drywall did damage to the floors, we should not be paying for the floors. The homeowner should be paying for the floors. And the association should be paying for only the drywall.
Okay, so there's no connection between the situation of who pays and who doesn't, and whether you have a insurance policy or not.
Yeah, no, not in the event of an insurable event. No, there would not be. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
It's no, thank you. So again, I know this is going to be YouTube, so I'm Anthony Loschavo, Loschiavo, president, owner of Great Florida Insurance in St. Petersburg, and you're welcome to contact me at 727-343-8899, or my email address is aloschavo@greatflstpete.com. So ALOSCHIAV@flstpete.com. I know Bill's going to put that, or I can send you something, Bill, to put on there. But thank you. So thanks for having me. We're all in this together. I know it's a hard market right now, and we're happy to add value for anyone that has any questions or whatnot. Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it. Dell, special thanks to you, Dell. Special thanks to you, Bill, too. You guys spent a lot of time on putting this together, and I'd love to come back. I had a lot of fun today.
Right.
Thanks for suffering through all my emails.
No, it's no problem.
Well, thank you.
Thanks very much.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Anthony, bye-bye.
Yes. Okay. Thanks, everyone.
That concludes the first part of our February 2021 ABC seminar. The second part is on public adjusters, and is included as a second link on the email that provided you this current video.